I want to say this slowly because some truths deserve space to breathe. Single at 80 is not a failure. It is not a warning sign. It is not a punchline. Sometimes it's a quiet victory. And I know how that sentence might land, especially if you grew up the way I did, where marriage was framed as proof. Proof you were chosen. Proof you were safe. Proof you'd made it. Where being alone past a certain age wasn't just sad, it was suspicious. So if this title stirred something uncomfortable in you, good. That discomfort is where honesty lives. Stay with me. Because I'm not here to attack marriage. I'm here to tell the truth about bad ones. The kind that don't explode. They just slowly erase you. And I've lived long enough to know the difference. The lie we were sold early. When I was young, marriage wasn't presented as a relationship. It was presented as a destination. You get educated, you get stable, you get married. And then, somehow, life becomes permanent, secure, settled. No one talked about whether the marriage was kind. No one asked if it was alive. No one asked if you could still breathe inside it. The goal wasn't intimacy, it was avoidance. Avoid loneliness, avoid judgment, avoid becoming that person people whisper about. So we paired up fast, sometimes wisely, sometimes desperately, and many of us stayed, not because it was good, but because leaving felt worse. What a bad marriage actually feels like. Let me tell you something that rarely gets said out loud. A bad marriage doesn't always hurt loudly. It doesn't always come with screaming or bruises or slammed doors. Sometimes it's much quieter than that. Sometimes it feels like speaking less because it's easier, explaining yourself one last time, again, being misunderstood so often you stop trying, sleeping next to someone who feels miles away. Being tolerated, not treasured, it feels like shrinking. And shrinking, over decades, does something to a human soul. You don't notice it all at once. You notice it when you stop laughing the way you used to, when your opinions get softer, when your dreams get more realistic, when your world gets smaller without your permission. That's the cost no one puts on the brochure. Why people stay longer than they should? People don't stay in bad marriages because they're weak. They stay because they're responsible. They stay because of children, because of finances, because of health, because of shared history that feels too heavy to walk away from. They stay because leaving at 40 already felt late, and leaving at 60 felt impossible, and leaving at 70? That feels like a crime against time itself. So they tell themselves, it's not that bad. We've made it this far. What's the point now? But here's the question no one wants to ask. What is the point of staying if it costs you the rest of yourself? The myth of too late. We are cruel to older people when it comes to love. We act like desire expires, like curiosity fades, like companionship is a luxury you missed your window for. As if the heart checks a calendar and says, sorry, that part of you is closed. It's nonsense. What does happen as we age is clarity. We know what peace feels like. We know what tension feels like. We know the difference between silence that heals and silence that suffocates. And that clarity can be terrifying, because once you see clearly, you can't unsee it. The quiet horror of dying beside someone who never knew you. Here's a thought that kept me awake more than once. Not dying alone. That fear is overrated. The real horror is dying beside someone who never truly saw you. Someone who shared your address, but not your inner life. Someone who knew your schedule, but not your fears. Someone who aged next to you, without ever meeting you. That kind of loneliness is deeper than solitude. At least when you're alone, your life is honest. Single at 80 means something different. When I imagine being single at 80 now, I don't picture emptiness. I picture waking up without tension in my chest, making coffee without bracing for disappointment, decorating my time the way I want, choosing conversation over obligation, resting without guilt. I picture dignity. Being single that late in life often doesn't mean no one wanted you. It means you finally stopped accepting less than you deserved. It means you chose peace over performance. The sunk cost trap. One of the most dangerous ideas we inherit is this: I've already invested too much to leave. Years, decades, memories, shared struggles. But time spent is not a reason to keep bleeding. If anything, it's the opposite. Time becomes more precious as it shrinks, spending your final chapters enduring quiet misery just to justify the earlier ones is a terrible trade. You don't owe your past your future. Loneliness versus freedom. Let's be honest. Being single can be lonely. There are nights when the house echoes. There are moments when you want to turn and comment on something, and no one's there. There are holidays that sting, but loneliness comes in waves. A bad marriage is a constant undertow. One passes, the other pulls. And freedom, real freedom, does something remarkable. It makes room for friendships that go deeper, for routines that nourish, for mornings that belong to you, for laughter that isn't negotiated. Freedom lets your nervous system finally exhale. Why society panics when older people choose themselves? Have you noticed how uncomfortable people get when someone leaves a long marriage later in life? They call it selfish. They call it impractical. They call it tragic. What they're really saying is, if you can walk away, what does that say about my choices? Your courage threatens the stories they tell themselves to survive, so they try to scare you back into line. Don't let them. Their fear is not your responsibility. Love isn't the opposite of being single. We talk as if the opposite of being single is love. It's not. The opposite of being single is being paired. Love is something else entirely. Love can exist in solitude. Love can exist in friendships. Love can exist in self-respect. Love can exist in peace. A bad marriage isn't love. It's habit with paperwork. What time teaches you if you listen. By the time you reach the later decades of life, you've learned things no book could teach. You've learned what drains you, what restores you, what you can tolerate, what you cannot. You've survived illness, loss, disappointment, versions of yourself you barely recognize now. Why would you ignore that wisdom when it matters most? Why would you tell yourself now, of all times, that your comfort matters less? The courage to be seen as alone. Some people stay married because they're afraid of how being single will look. The whispers, the pity, the assumptions. But here's the thing. At a certain age, you realize something liberating. Most people are too busy managing their own quiet regrets to truly judge yours. And the ones who do judge, they were never your people anyway. Peace is not boring, it's earned. A peaceful life can look boring to people addicted to drama. No chaos, no constant negotiation, no emotional whiplash, just steadiness. But peace is not empty, it's spacious. It's where you hear your own thoughts again. It's where your body stops bracing. It's where joy sneaks back in, softly, without announcement. Many people never experience that while married. Some only find it after leaving. Some only find it by choosing to stay single. Both paths are valid. Staying trapped is not. The question that changes everything. Here's the question I wish more people asked, not just older people, but all of us. Does this relationship give me energy? Or take it? Not once, not occasionally, consistently. Because love, even imperfect love, should not feel like survival. If you're afraid of ending up alone, let me speak directly to that fear. Ending up alone is not the same as being abandoned. One is a circumstance, the other is a wound. If you choose solitude over erosion, you are not being left. You are choosing yourself. And there is a profound dignity in that. What 80 really represents 80 isn't just an age. It's a lens. It strips away pretense. It dissolves urgency around things that don't matter. It exposes what was real and what was endured. At that stage, the question isn't, how do I look to others? It's, How does my life feel to me in the quiet? A different kind of legacy. Some people measure legacy by marriage length. I measure it by how gently you treated yourself, how honestly you lived, how much fear you refuse to obey. If your legacy is peace, if your legacy is authenticity, if your legacy is choosing truth over comfort, that's not failure. That's completion. If you're listening to this and it hit close to home, maybe you're still married and tired in a way sleep won't fix. Maybe you're divorced and wondering if you waited too long. Maybe you're single and questioning whether you missed something essential. Let me tell you this clearly. You are not behind, you are not broken, and you are not obligated to suffer to prove your worth. The quiet invitation. This isn't a call to leave your marriage. It's a call to stop lying to yourself about its cost. It's permission to value your remaining time, to honor your nervous system, to choose peace without apology. If that means being single at 80, then so be it. Better honest solitude than a shared life built on quiet despair. Final thoughts. I've learned that the bravest people aren't always the ones who stay. Sometimes they're the ones who finally say, "This is no longer how I want to live." If this resonated with you, truly resonated, I'd like to hear your story. Have you ever stayed longer than you should have, or left later than you planned, and found something unexpected on the other side? Leave a comment, not for debate, for recognition. And if you know someone who needs permission they haven't given themselves yet, share this with them. We're not here to perform a life, we're here to live one, quietly, honestly, while we still can.